don't force yourself to do stuff that you hate doing, because the quality of the work won't be as good.
Hello. I'm Charlie, your online business manager and WordPress expert. My goal is to assist small to medium business owners build their businesses with a focus on using the internet and online technologies in an appropriate and cost-effective manner. People hire me to take the stress out of managing their businesses and allow themselves to focus on what they do best. Hence my podcast. Today, my guest is Rose Davidson, the producer of Talking with Experts. Rose is an entrepreneur, an online event manager, podcast host, and as I just mentioned, the producer of Talking with Experts. Rose has helped countless others use the power of online media to share their message with people all over the globe. Thank you so much for being my guest today. Welcome, Rose.
My pleasure, Charlie. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Oh, honestly, I'm looking forward to this. Now we actually met through your podcast, which is how we connected, and
Yeah.
I'm kind of laughing just a little bit at both of our messages about using online media as one of the most powerful things you could be using today. Oh, look, I've just moved my notes to the side, which was just silly of me, so I'm just going to move them back here. There we go. So could you just start with a helicopter view of who Rose is?
Well, I started podcasting in 2020, just after the pandemic. I had heard of podcasts, but I at that time didn't have any interest in it. But I did notice that because of the lockdown, a lot of bricks and mortar businesses were closing their doors, not realising that they could actually change the way they did business by moving online. So I thought, because I'm quite heart-centered, I thought, well, how can I help these business owners realise that they could do something different with their business and not close during the lockdown? So I decided to investigate podcasting. How would I do that? And I thought, well, if I interview other business owners who have gone through similar circumstances, or perhaps had some value to add, why not interview them and share their knowledge with business owners globally? So that's how it started. I had it from inception to first interview was 2 weeks. And
Wow, that's
I've
quick.
I've almost interviewed 500 people up to date. So I'm about 10 away from 500 interviews. So I'm really proud of the last, almost 3 years. It's been a journey.
I'm sure it has, and I bet you learned a lot for yourself along the way too.
I did. Google is very helpful. However, there is a lot of conflicting opinions and ways of doing things. And one opinion will say to do podcasting this way, and you need this equipment and you need that equipment. I just started my podcast with a laptop and nothing else. No lights, no anything special. And anyone can start a podcast, just their mobile phone. So it's quite simple, really. You just need to make sure that all your ducks are in a row, basically, so that everything runs smoothly. It's not a difficult process.
I'm so glad to hear you say that. I'm a digital nomad, so I'm traveling. Well, I'm currently settled somewhat in far north Queensland, but I know that we're going to be upping our routes at some point and heading off again. I want to travel overseas and I want to keep this podcast running. So I've had to make sure that whatever I do, I can just sort of set up wherever I am and start recording.
Yeah, no, it's not a hard process at all. And people think it's hard, but I guess if you're not tech savvy, it could be a little bit challenging for you. But there are people out there that can help.
Absolutely. Now, look, one of the things that, and I want to come back to that. I think we'll see how we go as we go through this, because there's a few things that have come up. But one of the things you mentioned to me in your blurb when we were speaking is positive memories associated with a business's brand, and I really want to sort of dig down with you. Why is that? Why are brands important to businesses and things along those lines? There we go.
I guess a brand is important. It builds that like trust factor. People get to know who you are, and first they see your visuals, and then after that, they'll see you. They'll see photos of you interacting, on your profile with your family, your friends, and your business colleagues, and the like. And having a brand is important for the fact that it builds, as I said, the trust that with your potential clients or your already current clients, and having a positive brand where, good things that you're doing good things out in the community, whether you're volunteering or whatever it is, people will gravitate to you because you've built a knowing and a liking for what you stand for, and you live to your values, and you live to your morals, and people like that, and they will gravitate towards you if they are like-minded.
Excellent. So this sort of harks back to one of my other guests recently, talking about knowing who your target audience is and speaking to them, speaking their language. Okay, so thinking about your branding and the businesses that you've been interviewing, and new businesses and older businesses, what are the sort of pitfalls that you've seen business owners fall into?
Oh, there are a lot. A lot of it is to do with their finances. They're not particularly aware that having a great financial plan is the better of their business. A lot of people use their private income for their business, and they use their business for their private. And you've got to try and keep them separate. So that's a great pitfall that a lot of business owners fall into. A lot of the things too is time management. A lot of people don't manage their time well. There are other things like not being true to yourself. So being a people pleaser. I have had a lot of guests that are or have been people pleasers, and realise that it promotes burnout in themselves because they're so worried about disappointing others that they just keep working and working and working and doing and not having time for themselves. And another thing is like the work-life balance, making sure that you are spending quality time for yourself. A lot of entrepreneurs fall into the thing that they have to do absolutely everything, and that sometimes doing everything, you're working 12 14 hours a day. I mean, you have no time for your family and friends. So it's important to balance yourself and only do the tasks that you're good at, and the ones that you're not good at, farm them out to somebody else who is good at that particular task, whether it be finances, social media, video editing, all those sorts of things. Make sure that you build a team around yourself. If you can't financially do it, that's fine, but don't force yourself to do stuff that you hate doing, because the quality of the work won't be as good.
No, I'm sure you saw me starting to smile quite broadly at some of those things you said. It's one of the things that I say, and one of the things my dad always used to say to me was, oh, he still does. He still comes in and gives me a hard time about it. Are you working to live, or are you living to work?
Yeah, that's it.
And because if you're living to work, you're doing it wrong, kid. And he's not wrong. And you mentioned, if you're working all those hours, you're not there for your family and friends. More importantly, you're not there for yourself.
Absolutely.
You're not gonna survive through it. So, Rose, that's a really, really good thing for people to remember is work out what you do best, work out what you do well, and slowly start to build your team around you. And both of us work virtually. We're both, I think you said to me you used to be a virtual assistant.
Yeah, when I first
Um,
started, yeah.
and there are people around, predominantly ladies, but there are men coming into the industry that can take small amounts of work from you for a fraction of what you would pay someone as a full-time employee and just make your life that much better. So it's
Absolutely.
really, your team is important, and knowing what you're good at and what you want to be doing is really, really
Mm.
important. Okay, so with your podcast,
Mhm.
one of the things that you've been talking about with your point, one of the things you spoke about with your podcast is that you help people build that brand and get their name out there. Uh, can you tell us a little bit about how you find people, how you talk to them, what sort of questions you ask? Yeah, why is this so important to people?
Yeah, getting their message out is important to business owners, and it's a must, I think, for any business owner to get their message out to their audience, not just their ideal client, but audience in general, because you never know when someone may become your ideal client further down the track. The podcast that I is just a coffee chat. I don't have any set questions. I just think that chatting is a lot better. It's makes for a more relaxing interview, I think. Much like a talk show, I suppose. I mean, I know they've got set questions, but they do it in such a way that it just ends up being a chat. So I don't believe in having set questions. I think it I don't know, it doesn't bring a cohesiveness to the thing, and it doesn't make the guest feel all that comfortable, I don't believe. I use matchmaker.com .fm for most of my guests. I think I get about 95% of my guests from there. However, in recent weeks, I've had actually podcast agencies reach out to me and ask me would I interview their clients, which is quite a feather in my cap, I guess, to be able to
Fantastic. Well
reach
done.
that standard. Thank you. To reach that standard where people from all over the world want to have their clients interviewed by me. And Grant Cardone, actually, his team has actually reached out to me and asked me would I interview the speakers that are currently registered with him in his speaking agency. So that was a huge, I had a big party by myself over that. I thought that was absolutely amazing.
I think that is more than reasonable to do too.
So yeah, and it's important. I guess. I mean, the only thing that I ask my guests to do is to share the interview with their networks, and so not only do I get known, so it's building my brand, but they get known amongst my network as well because I share on, LinkedIn and Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Yeah, I think that's it. And plus all the other the podcast channels that are out there, like Spotify and Apple and Google and Stitcher and all of those other ones. So really, they're gaining a global audience, particularly if they are only known within a certain region. So now they've got a global audience that gets to know who they are, and so they build their brand internationally.
The other thing that I know that I got from doing the interview with you is it gave me something that I can put up in places and say, here's me. Here's
Mm.
me in a candid situation. And that's worth $1 million, just being able to have a chat to someone and get them to dig a little.
Yeah, yeah, and I forgot what I was going to say then. Um, having a mental block. Talking about the brand part of it, and you said, it gets you known out there with what on different platforms, and so doing a podcast can only be a benefit to your business, whether you are a carpenter or a plumber or a business entrepreneur. being on a podcast and having a podcast is a great way to become known internationally.
Absolutely. Now, we did speak a little at the beginning about starting a podcast and all the different ways you could do it and the things that you need to consider. Um, I have found personally that there's a couple of really hard and fast rules that I needed to follow. But I'd love to hear from your own experience and from what you've been able to find as you've done your research. What would you take as your top three things that as a podcaster that you should be doing?
I guess good audio is a must. People will forgive you for bad visuals, bad video, but they will not forgive you for bad audio. So make sure that you have a really good microphone. Make sure that if you're using a third party to record, that you've got background sounds are turned off. I use Zoom and I put that on the highest quality to block out backgrounds. Plus I use an app called Crisp with a K-R-I-S-P that takes out any other background noise that there might be. So that is the first thing. Make sure that that you are consistent in the way that you distribute your podcast. I must say I'm very guilty of not. I do mine every 21 days, and I bulk upload, 5 or 6 at a time. And so I'm not consistent in that way. But consistency is key because people will forget you really quickly if you don't post your episodes regularly. So that's the second one. And the third one is to make sure that you're friendly to your guests. Make your guests feel really, really comfortable. Don't, pry too much. Don't talk too much, because the podcast isn't about the host. The podcast is about the guest. And so you've got to make sure that the guest is totally on board with you, feels very comfortable, and we'll give you a good recommendation or review at the end.
Now I'm just going to be quiet. They are some really, really valid things. And I've got to say the sound was the one that tripped me up the most, particularly as I travel, because you just don't know where you're going to be. And road noise, or I hope there is no background noise coming through today. But I've got some fans going, and I've got refrigeration units going
I can't hear it,
around
so
me.
it's all good.
Oh, that's good. I'm so glad. And little tools like Crisp, they've changed my life. They have absolutely changed how I've been able to record and not have to worry about if someone opens the door and sort of looks on in and it goes creak, because it cuts it all out while still giving me a good sound.
Absolutely.
You spoke about microphones. They don't have to cost you a fortune. There are some really good, I'm going to say they're under 100 Australian, might be under 100 US actually.
My Rode Mini that I use, I love my Rode Mini. It only cost me $98, and that was on special. And I think they're about 130 normally. So they're not overly expensive. I mean, you can still use your laptop or your computer microphone.
Earphones.
As long as you use earphones. I'm not a fan of earphones. I don't like them. A lot of people, my guests, use headphones, and I don't know. To me, it distracts from the overall picture. But that's just me. But that's how they get the best quality sound. And they want to sound good too on the podcast. They don't want to be, echoey or any of those things, because they are promoting themselves. And so it's important that they have good quality sound as well.
Absolutely. So as Rose said, under $100 for a decent microphone, and honestly, it's one of the best investments I made. That and Crisp fixed my sound issues all the way up. I don't have any issues now. I think one of the things that you didn't mention that I'd like to sort of just dig into a little bit is preparation and being ready for your podcast. You spoke about being present and being ready to listen to your guests, but it takes a little bit of preparation, doesn't it?
They're all, yeah, I don't prepare overly much for my interviews. I get my guests to fill out a form that tells me who they are, what they're going to be speaking about, and any contact details, giving me a profile image, anything that they want to promote during the podcast is all in the form. So basically, I just read the form before the interview, find out what they're going to be talking about, gives me an idea about who they are. And I mean, I like to do that because I'm meeting them for the first time, and it's a bit like, to me, having heard a rumor about somebody, and so you've got a preconceived idea about who they are. I'd rather just meet them first off and get my own perspective on how I think the interview is going to go. Some people that I've interviewed are quite boring. So I have to liven up the interview somehow, by asking good questions, and yes or no questions really aren't the way to go. You've got to ask questions that elicit some sort of a response that is sometimes lengthy. And I've had guests that just, I can't get a word in edgeways. They just talk and talk and talk, and honestly, that becomes sometimes a little bit of a challenge because you have to listen, quite intently and try and remember the things they said, so that when you do get time to ask a question, that you're asking an appropriate question for the topic or the space of time that they've been speaking. So there are challenges to being a host, quite honestly. So I've picked out the boring ones, I've picked out the chatterboxes. And there are others too that don't speak a lot, and you've got to force them to give information, and that it can be really challenging when you don't know a lot about the topic that they're speaking on. However, I do have to say that out of all the interviews that I've done, I have picked up so much knowledge and so much free training and free mentoring through the interview that my range of knowledge now is so expanded to what it was when I first started. So I can talk to almost anyone now about any topic, and I can always have some positive input because of the amount of people that I've spoken to and the amount of knowledge that's been imparted during these interviews. It's absolutely wonderful. I actually spoke to someone the other day about quantum healing, and I didn't know a lot about it, but I'd heard her speak previously, and she had been a guest of mine a couple of times. And because I have two podcasts, I have my own, which is Talking with the Experts, and I also have another podcast called the Healing Through Love podcast, which deals with domestic and family violence issues and how people can overcome that. So I interviewed her for the second podcast, and I could actually speak to her quite intelligently about her topic, which was quite surprising.
And I bet 500 episodes ago you wouldn't have been able to.
Absolutely not, no. And it's made my life. I keep getting asked, why do I keep doing the podcast? Because I'm not making any money out of it. But the goal wasn't to make money out of it. My goal was to help others, and I think I've done that, and I've proven that I have helped others. So because people keep wanting to come back, and I have people that have been previous guests wanting to come back on. So really that has to say something about the quality of what I'm giving.
Look, I would agree, and I think the fact that you've just said that you don't make money out of your podcast, um, I'm going to go out on a limb, and I was going to say I'm not sure many people make money directly from their podcast anyway. For me, my podcast is more about A, giving value to people, and B, letting people get to know me. Who am I? What do I do? How do I talk? Am I the sort of person you want to come and talk to? And the fact that I can bring people like yourself on to talk to as well, because there's a wealth of knowledge out there. And there's a wealth of
Absolutely.
help out there as well. Okay, so if someone was to come to you and say, "Hey, Rose, I want to start a podcast, or I want to do," I think you've mentioned online events here. Yes, you have. Are you the sort of person that can help them with that?
Yes, I am a podcast trainer. So I have an online course that I'm currently in the process of formulating. It will be up and going I only have to do the videos. I've done all the workbooks. I just have to do the videos. And you know what? For me, being interviewed is challenging for me, and speaking to video on my own is challenging for me. But yet, for me to be a host, I don't find that a challenge at all. So I can't work that out. So it's I don't know. But yes, I'm just challenged with doing the videos at the moment. But they will be coming soon. And so the podcast course really takes you from zero to launch. So you don't have to know anything about podcasting. You don't have anything to know anything about tech or anything like that. The course takes you from not knowing anything to being to launching the podcast. So, and it's a 30-day course, and and you can do it at your own leisure, and you get one-on-one support, and you get group mentoring, and there's all sorts of things included, heaps of workbooks, heaps of bonuses, all of that sort of thing. And I also do online events, so anyone that's needing help with the behind the scenes stuff, so that they don't have to watch the chat and they don't have to press all the buttons to keep the thing online. I do all of that as well.
That's fantastic. Look, I'm really interested in your podcasting course as well. You can never not learn something new, so I'm always fascinated. Now, how can people find out more about all of this information? Do you have a list going so that for when your course launches, how do people get in
Well,
touch?
they could reach out to me at rose-davidson.com. So hyphen is just the dash.
Minus
So
sign.
yeah, the sign. Yeah, don't write it. So it's rose-davidson.com. You can find all the information on there, or you can reach out to me at hello@rose-davidson.com and just have a chat with me online. And I'll be happy to let you know when the course is going to be launched and how you can become involved.
That's fantastic. And I will actually have all of that information in the show notes, of course. So just check under this video when you're watching it online. You'll be able to get all of Rose's contact details there. Well, we're coming to an end of our time. Is there one thought that you'd like to leave people with?
Yes. Don't wait for the opportunity, create it. And why I mean that is because opportunity knocks on our doors every single day. And a lot of people think, will I take this opportunity or won't I? But if you don't take the opportunity to create something, you'll never know if you can succeed at it. I have failed at so many things, but to me, failure is a learning curve. It's something that teaches me what I can and can't do. So every opportunity to me is like, if it knocks on my door, I will jump in before I work out the details. I'll work out the details later.
Fantastic. That's really good advice. That's fantastic advice. Look, thank you so much for coming along, Rose. I've had a ball and I've learned stuff for myself today. And I really, really hope that our listeners or our viewers, whichever way you're listening to this or watching it, get something out of it too. I'd like to remind people to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and ring the notification bell so you find out when I drop more content. And of course, head across to Rose's channels and like and subscribe to her as well. Thank you so much for your time today, Rose.
Thanks, Charly. It's been a pleasure.